Well, hello, and welcome to an interview with Heidi Dulabon and Ramona Galea on etiquette and cultural competence. I'm your moderator, Kelly Whitney. Ramona is an international business etiquette and protocol consultant and cross-cultural specialist trained and certified by the International Etiquette and Protocol Academy of London. That's where she and Heidi met. She's also the founder of First Class Etiquette, a boutique soft skills training agency where she offers custom solutions to increase her clients' global professional presence, as well as training programs to build those increasingly important soft skills. Heidi is an international cultural consultant and etiquette expert. A coach for working professionals at all stages of their career, she's developed a learning strategy based on etiquette, empathy, and empowerment, from which she has enabled clients in a variety of industries to excel at specific goals and milestones and advance to new heights in their careers. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Now, we are currently living through a very disruptive time, to say the least, and experts say the rate of change is actually increasing. You've both experienced change firsthand as professionals moving from one industry to another, but let's start with Ramona. How has communication helped you to navigate and adapt to change?
Yes, sure. Well, of course, the only thing that is constant is change nowadays. And I believe that the basis for all that is actually communication, as you rightly said. I think the basis of all that is actually listening. How important it is to first listen to your audience, to the team you are working with. You know, we apply the 80-20 rule, the 80% of the time you're listening so that you're observing and understanding what others are telling you, and 20% is the time that you talk. And sometimes that is a skill that is quite difficult to master, not impossible, but it does take time to take a step back and to listen, to empathize, and to understand. And of course, this then generates a level of trust with others. And that is what then enables, us to adapt and to navigate through such difficult times. It's when you are communicating openly with others. It's when you are establishing that element of trust, which then, in my opinion, then leads to engagement. And that is ultimately what you need when you're communicating, whether it's an instruction, whether it's a change project, whether you're managing that. What you need is people who are engaged with you, on board with your same objectives, for whatever goal it is that you've established, and those are the three main areas which I believe are most important.
Right. What about you, Heidi?
Oh, I completely concur with everything Ramona said. That yes, listening is so important, and we're all so crazy around the world with this global pandemic, and we were busy anyway, and that hit, and we forget to stop, take a pause, and really listen. And as Ramona was saying, the 80-20, and I always think be present. Actually listen, not just hear the words, but feel it, with the empathy. And then, as I love that Ramona's pointed out that trust, and without trust, you can't have any kind of engagement or success and move forward. So I completely agree with everything that she said. And as leaders, leaders need to be transparent. You need to have the great listening skills. You need to be empathetic and be transparent. We're trying to get from here to there, clear goals, and with that trust, you'll get there.
Right. Good points from both of you on how to use communication to adapt to change. Now, Ramona, how do you integrate etiquette? I know you both have such a pedigree background in etiquette, but how do you integrate that with the need to relate to your colleagues when we're all so busy and still need to get things done?
Yes, sure. So if I have to start with the basic definition of what etiquette is, it's a set of conventional rules of personal behavior, which we can say are considered, acceptable and familiar in societies and in different cultures. Having said this, what is considered correct in my culture may not necessarily be considered correct in another culture. And therefore, it is this basic understanding that underpins everything of how etiquette then can be, applied to every situation, whether it is social, whether it is professional. It's the actual understanding of adapting and of understanding the differences in our cultures and in what we consider to be polite. Etiquette in itself is, it evolves, but it's not only about the evolving aspect of it. It's also about the way we apply it in different situations, as I've said before. And it's all about, being respectful to others. It's showing dignity, is, allowing others to understand that, I'm there for them, and I'm talking now from a leadership position, right? So if you have a team of people who are reporting to you, the importance of actually, guiding, mentoring with a genuine and authentic interest in their development. So it's not about me, it's about others.
Mm-hmm. Good segue for you, Heidi, because you always talk about being kind and operating with dignity and respect. So tell us, how do you integrate etiquette with that need to, still get things done and relate to your colleagues?
Well, just as Ramona's pointed out, that I think the best leaders employ empathy and respect, and their team members. I think semantics even matter. Are they employees or team members or your staff? Whatever word you come up with, I think that's even important. And you need to create these cultures where people feel safe. They can have an opposing view. They can voice it respectfully, and someone will listen to it. I think that the respect and dignity that leaders can show for others in their organizations naturally brings in points of etiquette, which, as we were taught, I think at the core is about respect and kindness and being aware of other people's feelings, not to cause offense. And I think that it just, as Ramona pointed out, that it is an evolving. Luckily, etiquette is dynamic. Many old rules are out, and there are new rules. It is always, it's fluid. It's sort of a living thing, if you will. And that's what makes it so fascinating, because you can see how things evolve and why they evolve. But what is constant, what has stayed the same, is this feeling of respect and kindness. And it is a little different across cultures, but the kindness and respect is still there. For example, to bring in etiquette, say table manners. Okay, so we're talking today, I'm in the US, Ramona is in Malta. We met in the UK, and we also studied together in Brussels. So now in the US, when you're at a table, to be polite, table manners, if you're not using your knife and fork, your hand should be on your lap. And in Brussels, your hand should not be in your lap. Your wrist should sort of be on at the edge of the table. I don't know, Ramona, if you recall, some of our instructors would say in Brussels anyway, feel like you have like a little notch in your in your wrist, and they are on the edge of the table. And there's history to that. It goes back that there's no weapons in my hands. The etiquette has such a fascinating history that I love. That in the US and the UK, if I'm not doing something, my knife and fork, they're on my lap. So it is interesting across cultures, but respect and kindness are across the globe. And that is something that's not going to change, I hope.
Well, I doubt that will, Heidi, because we have you and Ramona to guide us in the right path. But you said some interesting things about cross-cultural that I want to kind of dig into. So Heidi, tell us, how do you, adapt to that cross-cultural audience, but still practice that fluid style of communication that is so critical for business success? A lot of times you talk about reading the room. So does that have anything to do with it?
Well, I think reading the room is having a feel for what is appropriate. But as Ramona pointed out earlier, authenticity is extremely important. It's very important to me that you're authentic, as we say, do you, be true to you. And you can do that, and still be authentic, but yet adapt to the situation. For instance, if you're walking into a room and it's you're meeting with senior level executives, you're going to have a little bit different demeanor. You're going to be a little more professional than, say, if you're out for drinks night, happy hour, if you will, with some friends. You're still you're still being authentic to yourself, but it adapts a little bit to the room, to wherever you are, whomever you're with. And as far as going across cultures, yes, you need to be very respectful, because you could be going into another culture that might be vastly different from your own. And you need to be able to read that room too, and have done some research and shown a curiosity and a genuine interest in another culture, so you can navigate that with respect. It comes back to respect. You never want to offend someone. And if you didn't even take the initiative to try to learn something about another culture, you can be very offensive. You can really cause quite a bit of harm, if you will, if you aren't able to have some cultural competence, a background, a knowledge, and then read that particular room.
Okay, so Ramona, how would you add on to that as far as, adapting to an audience, practicing a fluid style of communication, and succeeding, cross-culturally in business?
So definitely, I'd like to pick up on that particular word which Heidi used, which was curiosity. And I believe that is so important in, being curious, learning about other cultures, and educating yourself. And educating yourself not in just knowing the nuances or the traditions, that come with cultural tradition, because sometimes it's so embedded. There's a religious side to it. There are family traditions that are also, something which one must keep in mind. But it's also an understanding on how, for example, people take decisions. So moving this into a corporate context, if we had to take an iceberg, for example, we only see the top part. And if I had to put this into context, we would see, for example, how someone dresses, how someone looks, or the language that they speak. And that would automatically give away, some elements of the culture they're coming from. But really and truly, when we're then, applying this into a corporate context, what we need to understand is the underlying factors of how people take decisions, of how people relate to others, whether it's in a business meeting, whether they're trying to close a deal, do they come from an individualistic culture, for example? Is it, are they, focused on the what's in it for me, kind of thing? Or are they then, collectivistic culture where, it's all about the group? And all this plays, so much importance in how people conduct business together, even though we're in a cross-cultural context, and even though we're not fully aware of those traditions, which are the underlying factor of how people actually react and behave. So once again, following up on what Heidi said, it's understanding what is acceptable and familiar to me, and understanding that is not that my norm is not the ultimate correct one at the end of the day.
I so agree with that you have to be aware that just because something is different from yours, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Or we celebrate the differences, and reasonably adapt to be respectful. Sure. and appreciate the other cultures. So that was great. I love that.
Okay. So Ramona, headquartered in Malta, you work in a very multicultural environment, and you routinely mingle with people from Russia, Italy, France, etc. That is a lot of difference. So How have you cultivated professional tolerance, and why is that important?
Yeah, sure. I think I have, yes. Over the years, you correctly, as you correctly pointed out, worked with so many people from different cultures. I think once again, I'm going back to the same notion of educating myself. So educating myself, understanding why people react and behave differently to us. So I come from a Mediterranean culture, and so maybe we are maybe a bit more exuberant, but people from other cultures need not express themselves in the same way that maybe I or my colleagues would, and that's okay. And also being an HR professional, it was always a challenge to try and help others understand this difference and also accept it and also be more tolerant to it. Because sometimes it's very easy, when we're caught up with the whole rush at work, that we expect people just to behave like us, when really and truly, that is their norm and this is mine. Another thing is empathy, which is so important in today's, in these times, and even, as Heidi also pointed out, kindness, which is sometimes associated with weakness when it really is not the case. So you can really strike the right balance between being kind, showing empathy, and yet still showing that in a business context. There are expectations and obligations that needs to be met. They just need to be done, or communicated with respect, with dignity, and just, with a level of understanding. We have to remember that people need to be validated. So it's also about giving attention, to people's needs. It's not just, it's what I need or what the organization needs, but it's just a balance, a healthy balance between them.
I like that idea of balance and validating people, because it goes back to a lot of other things you were talking about as far as listening. But Heidi, what's your take on, how you cultivate professional tolerance? You work with clients of all kinds. So tell us, why is that so important?
I think that, yes, it's important to teach tolerance, and there again, it comes back to curiosity and wanting to learn about another culture. Say you're in business, and we've worked with senior level executives that are dealing with cultures other than their own, and they're very surprised that their style might work very well in their culture, and they're at the top of their game, and they're transferred someplace else, or having a lot of dealings with someone from a very different culture, and they're not successful at all. Because you really have to look into different things, like Ramona's pointing out that some cultures, when they say yes, they mean no. And you need to know that going in if you're going to be doing business there. Some cultures are very, if you use Richard Lewis's model, they are maybe very linear, like Americans. We're very direct. I don't really need to know. I need to know you're okay, hope your family's okay, and then let's just get to business. Or someone could be from another reactive, maybe someone from Asia, where they are a little more introverted. They're a little more, they're thinking, they're quieter than say someone from my culture. And I need to understand that just because silence is, for me, it's I'm trying to do a business deal, and the other person isn't saying anything, I could become very upset. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going nowhere. But actually, it could be a huge success. They're just thinking about it. And if I hadn't done some research and realized that, I could have completely misunderstood the meeting. So I think that's why it's very important to have an understanding of the cultures, and not to say that we're not stereotyping. Everyone within a certain culture is not the same. All Americans certainly are not the same. But these are sort of national characteristics, generalizations, if you will, and then you can get to know that individual. But you need to know some national characteristics going into doing some business, or even I make a case for your everyday life. Where I live, there is a very large multinational company headquartered here. And I have neighbors from all over the world. And just to communicate and get along and understand my neighbors, you need to be culturally competent, or at least culturally aware. So I think it's just something that's very important in business and your everyday life.
Okay. So we've got to do some learning before we go into certain business situations where, multicultural participants will be represented. Good stuff. So moving on, Ramona, you are a very successful HR executive. So tell us, how would the HR industry benefit from a healthy dose of etiquette and protocol?
So, as the acronym says, human resources is all about people. So just, moving away from the general administrative duties that such an office usually performs, this function is all about managing the growth of people. So managing their growth both on a personal and on a professional level during their employment journey with an organization. Because there's always a start and there's always an end, because people move, from employment. And, setting the core values and ensuring that you're living them. So it's useless, saying or writing them on a wall. It's, the one needs to master the skill of actually living them. And when we say that we're here to help people building their confidence so that they continue growing and progressing in their career, it's living the values once again. And yes, we repeat, it's respect, it's treating people with dignity, in every step of their career journey. Now, again, of course, working in the human resources, industry brings about its challenges. So it's not only the cross-cultural challenges themselves, there's also personality issues, different characters, which one would need to deal with. And again, it's only when you have built that trust, which I started with earlier during this interview, that you can then, be able to reach out and be able to really help others grow in their career. So if we had to say etiquette and protocol, once again, it is those set of values and the behavior that I will display, with others, because at the end of the day, people look up to you, and, giving that right example, helping them grow, mentoring, being authentic. So it's not, I'm taking credit for, anything that a member of staff is doing, and that is also, comes with a certain skill in itself, and it's really helping them throughout this journey.
Good stuff. Now, Heidi, I am so curious to hear what you have to say about this, because you have been in leadership positions where you managed all kinds of different people. So tell us, how would the HR industry benefit from a healthy dose of etiquette and protocol?
Well, I think I echo everything Ramona said. And I think that one point Ramona made is really important in any genre, in any field, is it's not just a poster. It's just not words on a poster or a tagline on a commercial that organizations, HR departments, managers, leaders, they live it, as Ramona said. This isn't just something, we can all come up with organizations or experiences we've had where, well, it sounded good, looked good on paper, but they didn't live it. They didn't really mean it. Some ad agency wrote it. So you have to live this. And sometimes you just have to roll up your sleeves and work with people. I have done things like that where I came from the grain business, and It's a very physical business where you're moving actual corn or maize, if you say, or soybeans, wheat, and you're physically moving grain, and it's hard work. And sometimes I have actually gone out in elevators and worked alongside people to sort of gain their trust. As we talked earlier, it's so important that sometimes I was seen as, I'm not quite sure. It sounds good, but no, she wouldn't do this hard work. It's too dirty. It's too rotten. It sounds great where she's sitting, and you don't make a practice of that. But there are certain times early in my career, I read the room, and in one particular instance, I needed to prove that I knew what I was doing, and I was willing to do anything I asked other people to do. Now, as you advance in your career, hopefully you don't have to keep doing that, but it's being able to read the room, to gain trust, and to yet still stay authentic and still lead, because you still are the leader at the end of the day. And that's very important. You can be empathetic, but you have to be objective. You've got to keep your eye on the ball and make sure you're achieving your goals, and be aware of others' feelings. I'm really think emotional intelligence is an incredibly important part of everything that we're doing, and we all need to be emotionally intelligent to succeed.
Great.
Definitely. If I may just add to Heidi's comment, something which is many times overlooked is that the work that an HR function, as one of the supporting functions in an organization, does is not measured in numbers on a balance sheet. And therefore, the contribution that HR professionals give to an organization is actually through the people who are effectively, what makes or breaks a successful organization. And unfortunately, it's not measured.
It is hard. It's so important, soft skills. And there's been studies that these soft skills, if you will, I hear the new term is non-cognitive skills, that even some studies, great ones at Harvard, are saying they're as important or maybe more important. Yeah. Some say maybe twice as important, but it's so hard to measure them. How can we, and I love to measure things. So, one thing, and I'm trying to do research, how to measure soft skills. Well, retention. So an HR department, how is the retention? Well, we're keeping the people longer. Well, that's just one thing. There's, it's hard are the people happy? Well, how do you measure that?
Yes,
so it's really a hard thing to measure, but, when you're not doing well, for sure, everyone leaves and you're not productive and you're not making any money, and everybody's miserable, but it's harder to measure maybe your bottom line. We're more productive, we're making money, and people seem to be happy. So maybe something like Glassdoor somewhere where they can take a survey.
Well, they certainly do use, your reputation in the external marketplace as a metric, to gauge your success in soft skills and all the ancillary HR and talent practices that go along with it. So, Heidi, earlier in our conversation, you said, do you? So I wanted to ask you, what role does authenticity play in etiquette and cultural competence? I mean, is it hard to judge authenticity across cultures?
Well, I think it would be if you were not familiar with another culture. It might be hard, but since we've already inspired you to be curious, everyone, and learn about another culture, I think that, most of us can spot a fake, if you will, a mile away. And I think that's probably true around the world. Authenticity, when someone genuinely is interested and you know that this comes across, some sort of warmth and interest people have. I think most of us, if you are emotionally intelligent, you will just almost feel that. You can see that. It's obvious if someone, we all have had experiences dealing with other people that are just trying to put themselves out as something they're not. And I think that we see through that, and that's very unattractive. So be you. We can always improve ourselves. We can become, as Ramona started this interview with, etiquette. It's a skill. We can learn things. We can improve ourselves through education, through reading, through travel, through coaching, and that is just something I think we all should do. We're still authentic to ourselves. We're just keep improving ourselves. Everything is dynamic, and hopefully, I'm a lifelong learner. I never, what's the next thing I can learn? I just want to keep learning, because I just worry that I don't have enough time to learn everything. So, but I'm still authentic to myself. So if that makes sense.
It does. Ramona, what would you say about etiquette, authenticity, and cultural competence, and how those three play together?
No, definitely. I think that there are some also facial expressions that are universal across cultures. So even the way people, react with their facial expression can also give away whether a person is authentic or not. I think the eyes are also a good indicator, although there are some cultures where eye contact is not considered as as showing confidence, maybe as in our culture. So that is something that one must keep in mind. But I think there's also that gut feeling that sometimes we get as well about, whether we're doubting whether someone is authentic with us or not. But then again, understanding the culture they're coming from and the background and as to why people are behaving so, that would also, give you that bit of an extra edge into understanding whether, people are authentic with you or not. I think in today's age, it's something that, I think it's valued. We live in a world of social media where, we're exposed to so many, perfect images of people. And, I think authenticity plays a very important role nowadays.
Good stuff. Well, I have just one more question for you ladies, and I think this is an interesting one. I hope you agree. Now, they say that clothes make the man or the woman, and I believe there's some truth there. It's not uncommon, even for professional talent, to have a uniform of sorts. So we'll start with you, Ramona. How do you use clothing to facilitate your work?
Very interesting question. And yes, something of personal interest to me, because I like to dress appropriately for any occasion or the situation, that I'm in. And I do believe that, yes, the way we dress is all about perception and how we would like to be perceived by others. I have delivered training programs, which I have titled The Power of Dress, because it's really, does make an impact by the way that one dresses, whether it's for work, whether it's for a social occasion. I mean, there are various elements that one needs to keep in mind, especially when dressing. First of all, it's the level of effort, that one puts into preparing oneself. It's also a sign of respect. It's like when we're invited to a wedding, for example, people get dressed up and they do put that much of an effort, again, it's a sign of respect because someone has taken the time to organize this event, they've invited you, and I can show my respect in the way that I present myself. And likewise, that was a social context, and likewise in the corporate context. I believe color plays an important role as well, especially in business. The type of fabric, patterns and prints also make a big difference. And I can give an example. If you, of course, I'm going to give an example for how we dress, because we have more of a choice. So, wearing florals, for example, a floral maxi dress would give, of maybe that sense of being gentle and of being soft. Whereas if you opt for a business pantsuit, then you're showing maybe more confidence and more authority. It doesn't mean that you don't have the confidence and authority if you're wearing a floral dress. It's just that the first perception and the first impression that you give when you're wearing a power suit is different, and that's then the power of first impressions that we're going into here. Yeah, I see Heidi nodding. Yes,
Yes, absolutely.
definitely.
Well, jump in, Heidi.
Oh, absolutely. First impressions, you're sized up in a nanosecond, I think, by people. And they're just, it's how you, not just what you wear, but how you're presenting yourself. In a nanosecond, someone can look at you. What's your body language? Are you put together? And there's, as the old saying, there's no second chances for a first impression, no redos. So it's very important. And I am completely agree with Ramona's comments about respect. You dress because you are respectful of the invitation to someone's home for dinner, when we can do that again after COVID, or for the organization, and gosh, Ramona, in HR, I've worked with so many young people that go for interviews and they dress completely inappropriately. Maybe they all hear, a lot of young people I know are trying to get tech jobs in Silicon Valley and San Francisco area. And because the perception is that all the tech executives wear jeans and hoodies, then they can go and interview in that. And for a lot of the jobs, they cannot. Maybe if you get the job, that will be okay, but not for interviewing. And because it's showing a sign of respect. It's just being respectful for the organization. And I think it even shows a respect for yourself. I took it upon myself to get myself put together today because you mean enough to me. I want to put my best foot forward. And I think that's very important. And I really like what you said, Ramona, about how you can sort of portray different elements with the floral maxi dress, a little more feminine, or the power suit. And so, yeah, it's kind of fun to play with that a little bit, but there again, comes down to you're still authentic and but you're just respectful of the situation. Maybe you're in an outdoor garden party or something, and you're not going to wear your power suit. But so that dress is appropriate. It's about being, what we're saying, appropriate, knowing what's appropriate and expected, and adhering to that out of a sense of respect.
Sure. And if I can add to that, Heidi, of course, it's also about, the complete image. And as you rightly say, how you carry yourself, your posture, your presence, not being maybe too flamboyant, because even that needs to be controlled. And, it's all about the perceptions that we want to give out there of ourselves. Do we want to come across as professional, as just fun, as, again, depending on the situation that we are in.
Oh, yes, this leadership style is so executive presence, and it's so interesting because, yes, it's important that you have the right dress and the right body language, and yet then you have to have, gravitas, and, it's a difficult thing to use your word balance, to balance all of this, and be empathetic and meet the goals and make sure we're making the profits. And so it's very difficult, but you can do it. And it's just such a fascinating world, really. I think it's fascinating.
We really appreciate your time today. And I want to say a big thank you to all who are listening out there, and let you know that both Ramona and Heidi are taking on new coaching clients. And we'll include their contact information so you can reach out if you're looking to increase your cultural competence and soft skills and give yourself an edge in your career. And thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.